Back out to the snowy streets.
Huh, a church. Of all the places.
Really? Ghosts don't like churches?
Being a ghost has nothing to do with it.
He keeps glancing up at the church. Joey, I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah?
It's funny. There are hundreds of stories about haunted churches, and here I am actually bringing a ghost to a church.
Great, I'm a floating cliche.
It's funny. There are hundreds of stories about, and here I am
Great, I'm a...
George said that Grace wasn't safe. But he was referring to Grace Church. What did he mean? Is the church in danger?
Dunno. Would a guy get that worked up over a church? I feel like it's gotta be more than that.
Why would George be so concerned about a church?
I don't know, we should probably explore the place a bit more and find out. I wish she'd get a move on. I got something to say.
What?
I've never been much for praying, but after last night, I'd pray forever if I thought it would help.
We'll get to the bottom of it, Joey.
Yeah, that's what we do. Why would George get so worked up over a church?
Churches can be more than just a building.
For some, I guess. You ever been to this Grace Church before?
I've walked by it a number of times, but I've never been in.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
Weekend organ meditations.
So these signs, they're very big and imposing and look very interesting, but sadly, there's nothing really interesting on them. And I guess that's one problem with incorporating a real-world location. Sometimes the real world just isn't terribly interesting.
I'm not stealing from a church. It says Grace Church in New York, Episcopal, Reverend Gabriel Ullman, Rector. It says Grace Church. Of course, we knew that already. It leads into the church. It's a schedule of services. Nothing is going on at the moment.
Weekend organ meditations. Positively thrilling. It says Grace Church in New York, Episcopal, Reverend Gabriel Ullman, Rector. It says Grace Church. They really need a sign. It's not like this place is easy to miss. Pretty solid, but it looks unlocked.
So you're probably wondering, why earmuffs? Well, we tried giving her a hat, and we tried a bunch of different hats, and they looked fine, but when it came down to it, she just stopped looking like Rosa when we gave her a hat. Her hair is a very iconic part of the character, and removing that visually just changed the character to something else. So I gave her earmuffs instead, that way we could still see her hair, and she still looked like Rosa. So the earmuffs look fine on a tiny, low-res, pixely sprite, but when we got the first portrait sketch from Ian, they did look quite silly. I am sorry to say. So silly that I almost regretted the decision to give her earmuffs. We tried various things. I asked them to make them slimmer so they didn't stick out as much, but they still looked kind of silly. And in the end, what we did was I asked him to take her hair and cover up as much of the earmuffs as possible. So they're just visible enough that you know they're there, but not visible enough to call attention to themselves. So in the end, we found a good balance between the two.
I don't paint real-world locations very often, so for me it was very interesting to go into a project like Blackwell where I had to paint actual locations in New York City, and this is the first one that I did. And I actually really like how it came out, and I think mostly because I still managed to put some of my own colours in there. There's yellows and greens that probably wouldn't happen in real life, but somehow I love the fact that this is a really big image, because not only does it let me show a lot of the Grace Church, which is a beautiful old building from the photos that I got sent for references, but it also means that with such a large image you can get a huge range of colour in. In the bottom left hand corner you've got a really cold image, and as you move across you end up at a really warm place, a really cozy look. So I'm glad that it's such a big image, and I really like painting this location.
It looks like a schedule of services. Fortunately, nothing's going on right now.
Some of the testers remarked quite fairly that both of these doors went to the same place, and it was very confusing. That is true, but that is the way it works in the real Grace Church. So rather than have one door be locked, which is kind of annoying because it's a big scrolling room, I just had them both enter the church. So it's true to life, even though it might be a little strange gameplay-wise.
Reverend Gabriel Ullman Rector. Rector, but he barely knew her. Brr, 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 brr.
If you play the other Blackwell games, you'll notice that a lot of it takes place indoors. You go to a lot of things like apartments and offices and shops and cafes and things like that. There's not a lot of exterior scenes. And I wanted to change that with Blackwell Epiphany, because I wanted to show off more of the city. And it's kind of a dick move if you think about it, because it's the dead of winter and I'm shoving them outside more often. But, that's why I gave her a warm coat.
I don't know much about church organs, but it seems nice enough. I better not, especially with that priest in plain view. It's a book full of handwritten prayers. This book is full of prayers written by the church's congregation. They're all anonymous and they're all written by hand. These prayers just go on and on. There must be dozens of them. I don't have time to read them all. If any of these handwritten prayers are useful, flipping through blindly isn't the answer. I need to narrow it down somehow. He looks pretty deep in thought. Hi, could I talk to you for a minute?
Please keep your voice down.
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
Yes. What can I do for you?
I'm Rosangela Blackwell.
Father Gabriel Ullman.
Could you tell me about that book over there?
For some, silent prayer isn't enough. They want to write it down and make it real. That is what that book is for.
It's pretty quiet here tonight.
God's house remains open despite the weather. If anybody needs us, we are here.
Why the whispers? There isn't anybody around.
That makes no difference. The tranquility of this place must be maintained, whether anybody is here or not, especially on a night like tonight.
Do you know a man named George Austin?
I'm afraid not.
He was a member of this church. Are you sure?
It is quite a large church, as you can see. I'm afraid I am not familiar with George Austin.
Could you tell me about this church?
Are you looking to join?
Not really.
I'm afraid now is not the time for a history lesson.
George Austin was holding a clothing drive that brought clothes to this church. Are you sure you haven't heard of him?
Miss, we deal with hundreds of clothing drives at this time of year. Some we arrange ourselves, while most are volunteers. It is not possible to keep track of every single one.
Well, thanks. I'll be going.
Stay safe. This is not a night to be outside.
He looks edgy. I don't think he likes being here.
I always say that no one technique will ever work perfectly for every single scene, and unusually for me, for this scene, I actually did a value study first, which is where you paint the whole scene in black and white, then go over later and colour everything. I think it works really well to give it a very unified, warm church feeling, a sort of safe place, a safe haven, and it reminds me of the churches and cathedrals I've been in, which have a very warm, rich feeling to them. It is possible to get that warm, rich feeling using other techniques, but I think here isolating the form from the colour and treating them as two individual entities really gave me a stronger, unified palette.
So originally, the character of Gabriel Ullman did not exist. You just went in here, you did the puzzle with the book, and that was it. And a lot of the testers were upset by that. It seemed very strange that you had this really interesting location and could only do this one little dinky thing there. They're like, you know what? Yeah, they have a good point. So I added the character of Gabriel Ullman just to make the place a little bit more like a place that you would visit. And then later on, when I was designing the second half of the game, I incorporated him into a puzzle that I felt needed a bit more to it. So it worked out for the best to add that character. I am not a churchgoer, but my wife is, and when we lived in the area, she went to Grace Church almost every Sunday. And one day she said, "You really should see inside. It's beautiful." So she took me in. And what struck me about it was this book in the front, just in the front in the middle of the aisle, where all these handwritten prayers were written. Just these absolute heartfelt, desperate pleas for help. And all I kept thinking was, I wonder who these people are. And being a game designer, specifically an adventure game designer, I, of course, thought about ways you could do that. I think, well, if I have a sample of someone's handwriting, I'd be able to, find out who wrote what. And as these things do, they end up in a game that I write.
So, it's a pretty big coincidence, wouldn't you say? Messy priest is messy.
He's leaning forward and his eyes are closed. He's either praying or sleeping. Yep, it's her. Can we get going? This place makes me feel all exposed. Fancy joint like this, I'd expect something with a bit more gravitas. A book on a pedestal. No idea what it's for. No reaction. Probably feels drafts all the time in a joint like this.
With this sample of George's handwriting, I might be able to find something written by him. Gotcha. I don't need to turn to any other page. Hi again.
Yes.
Do you know a woman named Leah? I think she was a member of this church.
Even if she was, I'm afraid the name eludes me. I'm sorry.
Are you sure you don't know George Austin?
I am positive. I'm sorry.
Well, thanks. I'll be going.
Stay safe.
Leah's name was mentioned in George's prayer at Grace Church. Was she a member? George wrote Leah's name down in a prayer. Whatever kind of relationship they have, he must care for her a lot. Hi.
Yes, miss?
Did George know anyone named Leah?
Leah? You mean the police officer?
Police officer?
Yeah. Haven't seen her around for a while, though. Did they break up or something?
I have no idea.
Too bad if so. I liked her. She was good for George.
You said Leah was good for George. Could you tell me why?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said any of that. You're not a cop or anything yourself, are you?
Well...
No, you're not. You would have shown me your badge if you were. Forget it. Sorry.
Detective?
Uh-huh.
Have you ever been to Grace Church for any reason?
Church? No, I haven't. Why?
No reason. Forget it. So, George Austin was involved with a police officer named Leah. That's it, isn't it? All the secrecy. It's because the police are involved.
You want to get us both in trouble?
Of course not. I want to help you. Look what I discovered already.
Look, I keep my distance from you for a reason. I know you got your sources. I don't know who they are, but you have a way. That goes without saying. Leah Piero is a fine detective. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Maybe you can help, maybe you can't. But I know you're gonna stick your nose in no matter what I say.
Sorry, but I have to.
Yeah, I get that. I can't stop you, but I can't help you either. You're on your own.
Believe me, Detective, if there's anything I'm not, it's on my own.
Well, just be careful.
Well, see you around.
Uh-huh.
According to the nameplate, this desk belongs to someone named Disher. I have no idea who that could be. I'm not going to investigate every desk I see. I don't even know who this Disher person is. It's one of those computer things. Looks like it's powered down. I assume it's a telephone, although it's hard to tell these days. Cute kid. Yep, this is Leah Piero's desk, all right. This folder seems to be full of old expense reports. Too many to go through even if I could open it. The journal is labeled Midtown Jaywalking Citations 2001 to 2004. Interesting light reading.
Hey. I don't know where you're going, and I ain't gonna ask. Just don't step on any toes, okay? We cops can get pretty touchy when it concerns one of our own.
Yeah, so do I.
What did you mean by that?
Exactly what it sounded like. Whoever George was, he was one of us.
Us?
Yeah. Come on. It's a long way to Astoria.
So, this is what a cop's salary gets you, huh? A 2-story in Astoria.
It's not bad. Nicer than some of the foster homes I grew up in. Anyway, shall we?
Yeah, we both know the drill by now.
I've never seen him so focused. I think he's taking this one personally. Joey,
Yeah?
it's hard to believe a house like this costs as much as my tiny room in the city.
Thinking of moving?
God, no. It's hard to believe a house like this
Thinking of...
God, no. Whoever Leah is, she definitely knows George. Hopefully she can tell us more about him. Did you find anything inside the house?
Not yet. I should probably keep looking.
God, no. Astoria? Queens is for losers. Do not record that, I'm joking.
Normally I'm not very good at adding artistic flair to a scene, but something that I really wanted for this location was that half-melted snowman in the front yard. So it's kind of half melted and then frozen again. So it's kind of obvious that a kid has lived there, but wasn't able to maintain the snowman. So it's kind of grotesque because it's melted and it's kind of off-putting. That's the detail I wanted. It's not often that I think of artistic things to add, but that one was one of mine, so I had to give myself credit for that. I mentioned earlier how I wanted to kind of get out of my comfort zone, and here you're in Queens, which is really out of my comfort zone. I don't go to Queens too often. I used to have a lot of friends in Astoria, not so much anymore, so I used to go there quite often, and it kind of seemed very kind of suburbanish, less hip than Brooklyn, but more neighborhoody, more suburbanish for families who needed to get to the city quick. So that's kind of Astoria. So that's where they live. I figured a police officer who worked in the city would probably live in Astoria if she had a family. So I put her there.
Whoever made this snowman made it a long time ago, several weeks at least. Frozen solid. There's not much I can do with it. I think one of my old foster homes had a tire swing, but it was so long ago I don't remember. I better not. It's hard to see inside, but it looks like a little girl's room. Locked tight. I'm not getting in this way. It's hard to see inside, but I think I can see living room furniture. Locked tight. I'm not getting in this way. The Piero's front door, probably locked. Locked. The mailbox is a bit iced over, but shouldn't be too hard to open. There's a letter in here. It was wet and stuck to the side of the mailbox, but I got it. This letter is soaking wet. It's practically falling apart in my hands.
Never did make a snowman back in the day. I suppose it's too late now. It's nice to see that some things don't go out of style. There's a porch at least. She can take shelter there. Get over here. I got something to say.
What is it, Joey?
Not a bad neighborhood, I guess. Quiet.
Maybe. Astoria's nice, but I wouldn't want to live here.
Can't picture yourself doing yard work or cleaning the gutters, huh?
That and the nearest cafe is 10 blocks away.
Huh. Lucky escape. Not a bad neighbor.
Maybe.
Can't pick
that.
Huh. We gotta track down this Leah person one way or another. I should poke around Leah's house some more. There's gotta be something I missed. It's pretty dark in there, but it looks like a little girl's room on the other side. If it's all the same, I'll use the door. It's pretty dark in there, but it looks like typical living room furniture. Just a mailbox. It's the way inside. For living people, anyway. Hello?
Anything?
Seems quiet so far. Let me look around. There's only one key on the key rack. The label on it says Emile. There's only one key on the key rack. There's only one painting of some old guy looking out a window. Don't know if it's art or not, but it's okay. A dresser with some random knickknacks on top, nothing relevant. It's a picture of the Manhattan skyline. I guess if you live out here in Queens, you'd want a memento of civilization. One of the many variations of phone. It's a door, what can I say? Looks to be some drawing of a little girl. I don't know much about these computer things, but it looks powered down. Cute, but I don't know the first thing about dollhouses. That bear looks like it's been sat on more than played with. It's really coming down hard. It's a stuffed globe of the earth. Some kind of stuffed octopus. Seems to be in good shape. A shirt in the middle of the floor. It's a ball shaped like a globe of the earth. Well, a ball would be shaped like a globe of the earth. Do we want to? That's what she said. That's what she said. Sorry, yes. It's why tone matters so much.
Kendra?
Hi, who are you?
Hi, who are you?
I just almost want to do doubles back and forth. Hi, who are you? I'm Rosangela.
Hi, what are you doing in my room?
Oh, well.
Those of you that have played Resonance probably noticed some similarities here in tone and in colour to young Anna's bedroom, and I'll be the first to admit that I wanted to do a little tip of the hat here to Resonance. As a developing artist, I was really left impressed by the amount of detail and style that the background artist for Resonance managed to get from his scenes, and so that really inspired me and motivated me to work harder, so I wanted to do a little homage here to him.
I've had children characters in games before, and they're usually played by adults putting on kid voices, and the results are never that stellar. Even when I find audition reels from actors who insist that they specialize in children voices, it is always this high-pitched, really excited, "Yay, come on, let's go get him, guys! We're kids!" kind of cartoony voice, and that's not what I want. But when I spoke to Shelley, the casting director for this game, I asked her, I said, what are the chances of you knowing an actual little girl who could play a little girl in the game? And she's like, I know just who to call. So she had this girl, Samantha Rosen, in her class, and she hooked me up with her. And Shelley came to the voiceover recording session just to make things more comfortable with her. But this girl was so professional and so focused that I didn't need any help at all. I was very nervous because I'm not used to working with kids, but it was great. To have an actual child play a child and have her be so talented was a new experience for me. So Samantha really wants to pursue voice acting. So if anyone needs a young girl's voice, drop me a line. I'll give you her details. So the character of Kendra was kind of a happy accident. Originally, this whole section of the game focused 100% on Leah, trying to find Leah and Leah, learning about Leah. And it just didn't feel right. I spent weeks trying to make this work and just tearing my hair out before it dawned on me that it wasn't working because it wasn't Blackwell enough, which means that you were investigating a living person and just doing what a normal living detective would do to try to find this person. That's not Blackwell. There needed to be a ghost. So I thought, okay, there needs to be a ghost who is close to Leah, or at least knows Leah, and through that ghost you learn about Leah and you find Leah that way. And so the character of Kendra came about from there, and through there I got her whole extended family and this whole series of puzzles that you're solving right now. So when I first was putting together this scene using my crappy MS Paint placeholder art, I tried drawing a desk on the far left wall, and I realized when I drew it, because I suck at art, that it looked kind of like a piano. And I said, well, let's make it a piano then. And so Kendra became a piano player just because of that.
Hello?
Yeah? Is anybody there?
Who are you? Mister? Are you looking for my mom?
Yes. Is she around?
Uh-huh. I have to practice. Sorry.
Damn it.